everybody. Great to see a bunch of familiar names here that are attending. Once again, I want to welcome you to the first Hostfully Spotlight series, or first episode version. And this is special thanks to Jim Sheehan with Wydaho Properties. It was actually his suggestion to do this on our Facebook users group, Hostfully Users Group on Facebook. Wanted to have a way for power users and everyone else to kind of share best practices of how they're using Hostfully. So this is geared especially for existing Hostfully users to do a deep dive into some of the cool things you can do. And if you're not a Hostfully user, hopefully this will excite you about some of the features that we offer. So before we get into the fun stuff with Jim, I'd just love to introduce Jim, of course, and myself. I'm president and co-founder of Hostfully, and we also have Eric Anderson, our Senior Director of Customer Service. Hey, Eric, how you doing? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, I didn't mean to surprise you already.
No worries. Doing good, thanks.
All right. And just a couple minutes, allow me to humor you with just a couple minutes about Hostfully for those who don't know what Hostfully is, and then we'll get into the fun stuff. But we are full-scale, full-service property management software. We can help you run your business from tip to tail. We have direct integrations with all the major channels like Vrbo and Airbnb and Booking.com. We help you with your own direct booking website and processing payments directly. We have awesome email templates and triggers in place so you can automate all your communications with the guests. A brand new inbox, which is pretty cool. An owner's portal, so you can manage communications with the owners and they can see when the property is booked and how much money they're making. All sorts of reports, analytics, and more. We also have a standalone digital guidebook solution. So if you are using a property management software that you already love, you can still use our beautiful digital guidebooks. And it's a great way to share all the information with your guests about their trip. So directions, check-in details, house rules, other house manual stuff, how to turn the TV on, how to use the laundry, and then all your favorite local recommendations. Really decreases the amount of time you're going to spend communicating with the guests, and it's giving you a 5-star. It's showing your brand as a 5-star hospitality brand right from the moment the reservation is made. We win awards too. So Software Advice, front runners, they're like the sister company to Gartner in their Magic Quadrant. They listed us as best vacation rental software on the guidebook side. And on the property management side, Terry White, the creator of VRMB's Keystone Awards. They've done the Keystone Awards 2 years in a row, Terry White and Matt Landau, and we won Best Property Management Software. Both years they've done that. That's the most thorough independent analysis of property management softwares. They've done demos of well over 50 property management software. So we're very proud to have won that both years that they've had it. And we're also very proud to be the only property management software in North America that is a preferred partner for Airbnb, Booking.com, and Vrbo. So that's them saying that our integrations are really strong. And we love providing information for the community. So we have lots of resources out there. Our annual report on hospitality trends. We are just in the works of writing our current one for 2021. Excited to be publishing that. You can see last year's on our website. We also have lots of other white papers, reports, and a blog, and we get lots of great feedback on that, as well as these webinars we put up too. So you can see old webinars that we have as well. All right, so that's a little bit about Hostfully, and now on to our main attraction. So Jim, thank you so much for joining us. At a very high level, I'll go over the agenda, then I'll hand it over to you, Jim. Jim, he's been a long time with Wydaho Properties, a long time Hostfully customer, and he's been a great partner as well. He's been an early beta tester with a lot of our features and has always given great feedback. And it's been real exciting to see the ways that Jim dives into all the nooks and crannies and corners of our product, for better and for worse, and always helping us make it better. And not just providing us feedback, but also being active in our Hostfully Users Group on Facebook and really helping out the community. And as I mentioned earlier, it was Jim's idea to do this, and we're real excited to have the Spotlight series. And if there's other Hostfully users that are listening and there's something cool that you're doing with Hostfully, please let me know. And we'd love to talk and feature you possibly on a spotlight series in the future. So there was a lot to cover, and Jim's going to go over at a very high level what he's done with the direct bookings website to increase his direct bookings, some of the templates and triggers that he set up, the Airbnb reviews automation, which is a fairly new feature that Jim quickly adopted, and then a fun deep dive into Zapier and QuickBooks. I know lots of people have expressed interest in accounting and in QuickBooks, as well as in Zapier. So this is going to cover a lot with one thing that Jim's done here. And then if we have time, we'll go over some of the other integrations that Jim's put in place and how those are going. So, all right, without further ado, let's make you bigger for a second so you can say hi to everyone, and then we'll share your screen. How's it going, Jim? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Appreciate the opportunity here, David.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. And I see here, I just made your screen large and you're ready to go with your website. So can you talk a little bit about how guests book directly with you?
Yeah. And before I dive into that, I am going to thank David and the whole Hostfully team. As I've mentioned in Facebook and other places, from our property management business, Hostfully is really the center of our universe. You have to have these single points of truth anytime you're dealing with bunches of data. And when we started the company, that was our first decision. And you don't always make the right decisions. I feel like we did with Hostfully, and I've sort of followed their leads from an integration standpoint, and excited to share a little bit how we use it today and keep building the community, because I believe in open communities that, as David alluded to, I do tend to be vocal. When something's not working, I let them know, and when something's working, you don't always tell people how great it is, but I'm really happy with where they're taking the platform. So we'll start off here and talk a little bit about direct booking. You know, the nirvana in our business is to become less reliant on the OTAs and really drive as much traffic to our own sites and to book directly as we can. One, we net more income, and we have a little bit more control over the guest experience. When we picked Hostfully, this wasn't the reason that we picked them, but I very early on learned about their sort of website templates and how to do it. I assisted some outside help, but I think we've got a really nice integration going at this point. And what we're showing here is our homepage for the Wydaho properties. And they have something called their search widget, which we basically implanted into the homepage. So if somebody's coming to our website and looking for properties, where they're going to start is with that search widget. So I can take this and basically click and search, and it's going to pop me over to a site that, and I guess the screen's a little small, but if you look at the URL, it's still showing Wydaho properties, even though that this is serving up off of the Hostfully platform. So we've set up a URL at rentals.wydahoproperties.com, and basically we can get in here and get to any of our properties. We can go across all of our properties and basically drive the direct booking scenario. It's one of those things that's never growing as fast as you'd like, but you have to also layer this in with other SEO and web tactics. And we've got folks working on our blog strategy, making sure that we're promoting our general geo and vacation rentals and trying to show up in the Google rankings. But before you can even do any of that, you have to have a place for people to land and let them book directly with you.
Hey, Jim, can I stop you real quick?
Yeah.
We got a question here from John, and he's asking, how do you drive advertising and traffic to your site to begin with?
Yeah, so that's what I was alluding to on the whole SEO strategy. You really, that's the same question anybody running a public website asks, is how do we get traffic there? And SEO would be a multi-week topic in and of itself. But basically, I've always said you have to get into the content creation business. And if you want to be ranked in a search engine, you have to have relevant content out there that people are going to click back or link back to and basically drive you up in the search algorithms. And it's just, it takes some hard work. So think about the key industry, like we're in the Teton Valley in Wyoming and Idaho. So if you go out there and start searching on that, hopefully you'll start running across some of our blogs. Our blogs will take you into vacation related stuff that people do in this, which will drive you back to our website. So it's a whole strategy. There's a lot of people out there that will ask you for a lot of money and guarantee you placement. Having run tech companies, I've never seen that happen. It just takes some hard work.
Awesome.
The other thing, I guess that's sort of cool here, even though this is a separate website, if we look on like the bottom in the URL and I click back on this, this is going to pop us back into our main website. So the user experience from a end user or somebody coming to rent with us, they don't really know that we're popping off into a separate entity, but for a lot of reasons, as far as the credit card transaction and some of the things you need to do from a security standpoint, you really need to be running that in sort of a container, I would say. Any other questions around that, Eric?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, well, let's jump into my favorite tool then, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we use Hostfully and some of the things that we do here.
Jim, if I could just say one more thing about what you've done with your website. I kind of consider this the best of both worlds approach, where you own your website. So you're like your homepage, you're not tied to Hostfully. You have complete control on how you want to change this up. While at the same time, you did not need to build an extensive API integration to handle the direct booking side. You just took some HTML code that we provide for that search widget to put into your homepage. And then when you hit search, that takes you to the page you were just at before, which is kind of fully managed on the back end by Hostfully. So when you update a photograph or change a description or update a price in Hostfully, that gets pushed to Airbnb and to Vrbo, as well as your own direct booking site. And you didn't need to build any API integration with that. We kind of do that out of the box for you.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole shopping cart experience, there's a bunch of heavy lifting that gets done on an e-commerce platform to actually run a transaction. And I did not have to go out and hire a coder to do all that. I mean, that sort of comes with the platform. And there's a little work to do to get it set up, to look pretty and whatnot, but it's nothing like having to build it from scratch, which I've done as well. So
awesome. So now when you get a reservation, how are you communicating with the guests?
Yeah, so let's talk about one of my favorite features inside of Hostfully is the templates and triggers. I sort of call this the poor man's programming, but when you think about it, one of the things that we want to be able to do is to communicate in the same kind of cadence. Everything that you do on a platform is about creating repeatable processes to drive scalability in the business. If I just had a single property, it would be pretty easy for me to manage that communication flow. I think right now we're at 17. We've got about 6 more coming online. There's just no way for me, unless I want to drastically increase my rates and hire a bunch more staff to stay on top of it. So you have to use a system to drive that. And the templates and triggers, so we use a sort of a systemized messaging concept that goes out to people. So right here, I pulled up one of our templates that is our check-in info. Everybody that comes into Wydaho gets the same message. Now they look unique, and you would be surprised how many people think that we are typing these all up by hand, but we're not. In the template piece in Hostfully, we created a check-in info. This goes out 4 days before the reservation starts, so I know exactly when they're going to get it. And we've prepped the guest to think that they're going to get it 3 days, but we send it 4 days to alleviate that question, like, when am I getting my check-in info? And in the template, you've got variables that you can drop into it. As you see here, we dropped in our logo. We dropped in the guest first name, which is one of the variables off the reservation. We dropped in a PIN code. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but we use Lynx for our integrations for our locks. Everybody has a unique PIN code. And then the last thing, I guess there's a couple other variables. The other one is we're big users of the Hostfully Guidebooks, and we'll get into that next. But we have a unique URL for each guidebook that gets dropped into here based on where they're staying, and then we drop in our agency name. Now, if I pull up what the customer gets, did that change over on there? Yeah.
Yep.
Here, basically, Laura's getting a message saying, has our little logo at top, here's your PIN code. So this is unique. And the way Lynx does it is we're taking the last 4 digits of the cell phone number. So it's one of these things that people always remember. We don't get questions anymore about what's my code or how do I get back into the property. It's like, oh yeah, it's my cell phone number. We've got a link to the guidebook here, and then the other information. So the templates, and so we didn't really talk about the triggers on this piece, but the method in which you communicate can constantly be modified within the system. If you're finding out that everyone's asking for their check-in info like 5 days before, I could go and change this to say 6 days before check-in, send them this message. Now we've fine-tuned it over the time, and I found 4 days to alleviate most of those questions. But it's so there's 2 other things I sort of want to talk about on this. So the guidebook, the URL we dropped there, and if you don't use the Hostfully guidebook solutioning, it's something that will take your business to another level. When we first started, we were looking at putting guidebooks sort of in each of the properties. And I take over properties from other property managers, and we'll go in there and there's this huge book of outdated information that's sitting on the desk. With an electronic guidebook, we can basically update real-time information that's getting pushed out to the guest. And it's really been a game changer for us. And it's not, you don't have to recreate the wheel every single property that you're doing. You basically have a bunch of cards, and the way that they put guidebooks together is I can say, here's my general information for this. And I want to, like, if this property has a hot tub, I've got a hot tub care card. I'll drop that in the houses with a hot tub. If this has, I don't know, there's always different things there. If I look at the house manual on here, another thing that's sort of been a game changer for us. So like no parties, we do drop that card in all the properties. So we don't have people running parties. I guess it doesn't totally solve that problem, but at least we've told them. The other thing,
if only it were that easy.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't you read the card? It said no party. But some houses allow pets, some don't allow pets. So we'll put in the pet card depending on what property. Something I do unique for each property is on YouTube, we upload little videos, and then with the video widget inside the guidebooks is we'll drop a video in here, because nowadays people just want to sort of watch this stuff. They will read it, but the videos get watched all the time. The other thing to note on this, and I didn't set this up to mirror my phone, but this is a totally a mobile responsive site. So when people are pulling this up on their phone, which is what they're walking up to the house with, it all looks great. Everything's right there at their fingertips, and it alleviates so much back and forth with the guest. It's just something, if you're not using, you really should look at it. I was trying to see. Yes, templates and triggers. Let's jump back over to that.
I love what you did with the videos there. Thanks for showing that off, especially for check-in and access, being able to show a very clear video of here's how you even punch the keys on the smart lock, and here's exactly where it is. We've seen some cool custom videos of, like, from a person's perspective, walking up towards the home and exactly where they're going. So that's
done
great
those.
to clarify that.
There's some of them. If you get more than a couple questions, like, I can't find this in the dark, okay, we're going to go shoot a video and then gets rid of those questions. So it gives us a way to push this out. If I had to, if that was sitting in the property, that would be of no value to anybody. And you can't get all that up in Airbnb or Vrbo. So this gives us a way to push out some of that information. From a trigger standpoint, I'm not going to dive into the triggers, but I do have a fair number of triggers set up to communicate when certain things happen or during certain time frames. And I would argue that everybody should go through what their communication, and if you're doing it manually now, look at when you're doing it, look at how they set up triggers on these. Let's just pull up one real quick. So when a booking confirmation happens from all 4 channels, I'm going to send an email. I've got this going, the same message going to all 17 of my properties. I'm sending it to the guest. I used to send copies to myself, but as we got bigger, that became a little overwhelming. And then we tell it which template we're going to use. It's that simple. I mean, you don't have to know how to code. You just have to sort of know what a trigger event is and how you're sort of setting that up. So if you're, and I've had this conversation on Facebook with people, I mean, there's a lot of great messaging platforms out there. Explore what Hostfully has there, and you might save yourself a little bit of money if it covers the needs. The other thing this also does, and I'm not going to dive into it here, but the SMS side of it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the newest feature in this section, and luckily they let me sort of be a beta user on this one, so I got to dive in early and give them my feedback. We all spend a lot of time, or if you're not, you should spend a lot of time making sure that we're reviewing our guests. It's part of the, I won't say the game of our business, but it's just something you have to do. You give a review, so you get a review. And I was always, and part of my messaging sequence is, the day after they checked out, no matter what kind of guest they were, I say, you were the best guest ever. I'm giving you a 5-star review. I really hope that you'll return the favor, or, you're trying to build up a little rapport there. But I was doing this on every single one. I mean, we didn't really have a way to automate it because it had to all be done manually. So I would spend like an hour every night going through and doing all the reviews. And yes, I had some canned ones. I'd cut, copy, paste, but it's still an hour of my life every night that was taking a bunch of time. With the reviews now, you have the ability to set up some individual reviews that you're going to use. And they've actually, David just told me that see here where it says insert variable. I can now change it. Whoops, I guess I don't want the variable there. I can take it and basically say, I want to go through and give somebody a review and have it automatically happen. So I no longer have to go in there and manually post these. Now, if we do have a really bad experience, and we do get some of those, but we're somewhat remote and it's not a huge problem, you can go in there and I can go find it and I can tell it to not post it. And then we sort of decide about how we're going to do that. But this has been a game changer for us from a time management standpoint. I pulled up one here that
they're right at the top.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is, if I go back to my templates, I think this is is this number 3? Yeah. Thank you for being a clean, courteous, whatever guest. But Alexa, the day after she checked out, she got this. And Alexa talking behind me. I don't know if you can hear that because her name's Alexis. So it's thought I was talking to her. So it's unbelievable. So it's one of those things, if you're not doing, go in there, just spend a half hour, figure it out, get a couple of the canned ones that you're already cut, copy, pasting, and get it set up to automatically post. Now,
Jim, when did you say you posted these? You can schedule it anywhere from like 1 day to I think the max of 14 days. So did you say four days or so?
I got to remember. It's been a while since I set it up. I
It's
was
it's
thinking
in
we
the
were doing,
trigger. Yeah, it's in the trigger section. You don't need to look now, but I'd
yeah,
probably say that like 4, 5, 6 day time frame gives you enough time to cancel it in case you want to write a personal custom review. While then also gives a lot of time for the guests to see that you wrote a review and now they have another 10 days or 9 days to respond so they can write a review.
yeah. I think that's sort of the golden standard was 4 days afterwards or whatever. But it's whatever. It's one of those features that I'm forever thankful for. And I've got some other ones that we're going to try to get in the pipeline. But this, if you're not doing it, you should really think about it.
Awesome.
So anything else on the templates and triggers? Did we get any questions, Eric, that people want to know about? No? Okay.
No, I think it looks pretty clean. It's good that you haven't gone back in there in a while. It means it's working and it's automated. That's awesome.
Yeah. So now let's, one of the things, and the whole reason I sort of reached out to David and said we should do this is because I saw a couple questions on Facebook, and I just didn't feel like people have picked up on the value of what they did when they rolled out the API and the Zapier integration. And as a user group, the more we use a feature, the more it'll continue to be supported and enhanced. And reviews may save me the most time on a day in and day out basis. But this Zapier integration that we're going to talk about here has probably saved me the most on a monthly. So any of you that are running more than 1 or 2 properties, sort of what the challenge is on the accounting piece of this. If you have 1 or 2, the accounting's probably pretty simple. You can stay on top of it. But in the middle of our high season, June, July, August, I'll be running multi-hundred reservations every single month, and every one of those needs an invoice. We've got money coming in, and and I was running spreadsheets, and then I'm cut, copy, pasting data into Quickbooks, and I'm there's always some fat finger errors that you don't catch until you try to do owner statements, and it was just spinning out of control. So let me step back and just talk a little bit from a business standpoint. So initially, we decided to go with QuickBooks Online for a variety of reasons. It was a pretty open platform. I hired an accounting team to sort of set up my general ledger and set it up to do what we call trust accounting. So I have a set of rental books and a set of rental bank accounts where all of the owner's money drops into. And then I've got a set of operational books where I'm paying my subcontractors, my employees, paying out the owners, and doing all of that. I had to find a way to take the single source of truth of bookings, which is Hostfully, and get that into an accounting system so that I can do everything else that I need to do. Well, every week I would download my orders, I would drop them into a spreadsheet, I would massage the data, I would have to go create those customers in QuickBooks, I would have to do the calculations, make sure that they're going against the right property, and then as the money came in, apply the money to those invoices, and then I was sort of done there until I had to do owner statements. And again, at a couple properties, I was fine doing that, but pretty soon it got out of control. So let me most of you that use Hostfully, the order that I have up here should be pretty familiar. If I drop into my pipeline and I click on anybody's view details, this is Yuri. They're coming in March for 13 nights. They booked this. I can see up here that it was an Airbnb order. We also see the amount of taxes that Airbnb is collecting. In Verbo, it's a different, we do direct bookings for Verbo, so we're our merchant. But here on an Airbnb order, I've got the rental amount, I've got my cleaning fee, I've got my safely fee, And those are really the three pieces of information I need to get over into the invoice. Well, when Airbnb sends me the money, we all know that they're not sending me $16.91. So the data I have here, it's I'm really getting 97% of that. I'm getting 97% of the cleaning fee, and yeah, I get 97% of the safely fee as well. So if I jump into QuickBooks, the invoice ultimately needs to look like this. And this is how I do accounting. Now there's no single one way to do accounting. I'm just sort of showing you the way we chose to do it. I track the customer. I track the property based on the class identification. And then I've got my different general ledger pieces where I'm dropping money into these buckets so that I can run my accounting. I've got rents, which is where the bulk of our money comes into. I need to create a description because this shows up on my owner statement. Who did I rent to and how long did I rent to them for?
Hey, Jim, are you able to zoom in a little bit? It's a little hard to see the numbers. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. That looks great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I've got these big 30-inch monitors, so it all looks big to me, and then I'm wearing glasses to boot. So we've got the rents. I've got the dates of the stay. I've got how many days it was for, and then I've got the rental amount. And if we go back to the order and you take 1691 times 97.97, that's going to give you that amount. Now the property has to pass through as a class, and then the cleaning fee in our business, and everyone runs their business different, but the cleaning fee and the safely fee, I drop into the class of Wydaho Property Management because that's a straight pass through. We keep all that revenue, and I don't want it to show up on owner statements. So if you think about what it would take to get this data and manually enter this, and I did thousands of these before we had Zapier, it was time consuming. And then you'd be off by 2 cents somewhere, and then because when I go to reconcile at the end of the month, I'll run a report for a property out of Hostfully, and that revenue amount has to match up to my owner statement. And if it doesn't, I've got to find out why. And if you have a couple properties, it's not that much. All of a sudden, it just becomes an exponentially harder problem to solve the more properties you have. Whole purpose of having software and platforms and systems. So how does this all happen? We use Zapier. I don't know if it's Zapier or Zapier. And
you make Zaps. Like it's a Zap. So I think it's Zapier, but everyone says Zapier, so I'm not sure either.
Yeah, tomato. It's and if you go into Zapier, some of the things let me talk a little bit about what it is for people that aren't familiar with sort of middle tier software. When you have systems, you can have what's called a API. What is that? Automated programming interface or automated? I'm not sure. But an API basically is a set of tools that can basically expose data out to the web in a logical way. Hostfully said, we're going to create an API that can be consumed by somebody else, and that somebody else is Zapier. Now, they have APIs that they're exposing out to all their integration partners because they have to have a way to move data back and forth among systems on the web. But what Zapier does is says, I've got this set of data, so when a booking happens, this is the data that I can pull into Zapier. Now what Zapier is, it's a middle tier, and it grabs all that data when a booking happens, and then we say, what do we want to do with this data? Well, QuickBooks Online also happens to have an API that Zapier could consume, and we have to tell Zapier via a Zap what to do with this data and go put it into QuickBooks. I could go put it into a spreadsheet. I could make it send an email. I could make it do anything I wanted with the data as long as the destination system also is accessible by Zapier. They're one of the largest middle tier providers, so you'll have a hard time finding something they don't connect into. I'm just using QuickBooks. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. So we've got this order, boom, it comes in, we got this data. Zapier picks it up, and the first thing it does is it runs 2 zaps against it, because the first thing that I have to solve for is this coming from Airbnb, or is this coming from Hostfully or VRBO? I've got to also modify this because we're also now on Marriott and we're doing vacay by ways. So I've got to extend what I'm doing here. But the calculations for home away or VRBO and Hostfully are the same. The calculations for Airbnb are different. In VRBO and Hostfully, I'm also collecting sales tax. I'm not taking it times 97% because I'm collecting the full amount. So there's just differences of things that happen there. So let's just jump into this now, and I'll also talk when we get done with this. I did have help. I'm not a coder. I'm dangerous enough on my own with computers, but if I was writing code, none of this would have worked. So I'll step through this, but don't send or don't ask any JavaScript questions because I'm not going to answer them. So the trigger happens. The trigger event is if something happens in the host system, what is that something and why? When should that kick off? So the trigger is a new booking happens. So as soon as a booking happens, Zapier knows about it. And then I say, only continue down this zap if it's an Airbnb order. If it's not, stop. And then the other zap fires up and says, only continue if it's a Hostfully or VRBO order. And right now it would be, and it would follow there. The logic after that is pretty much the same, except for the calculations for the invoice amounts. So we'll find and create an order in QuickBooks. We go through and we'll just sort of show you here. This is sort of the JavaScript that I had somebody write, and I'll show you how you can get help on that. But basically it's coming in, it's setting some of the variables. It's figuring out which property it is in Hostfully and what my class ID is in QuickBooks Online so that I have all the right ways to create the invoice. And then it spits out at the bottom, it's going to spit out sort of what rents are, what the cleaning fees, and what the safely fees are. Those are the 3 things on a VR or an Airbnb order that have to make it through to the invoice. It'll find the products in QuickBooks. Products is the, in our case, it's rents and cleaning and stuff like that. Create the numbers, and then it goes through, and the last thing it does is create an invoice. We used to have it incrementing the invoice number. I'm now taking the order ID number out of I guess it's not on this. Yeah, it is. This order ID number is what will end up on that invoice number. Hopefully that's yeah. So if you see here my invoice number there, that way if there was ever some kind of real sleuthing I had to do, I could look at what the invoice number is, go back into Hostfully, I could search for the order ID number and get back to that exact same transaction. Where did this data come from? It sounds complicated. Once you get it set up and working, it just hums. I mean, it just creates invoices. And the only thing I have to do is my money comes into the bank. Instead of having to figure out where it goes, I just sit there and match invoice, match invoice, match invoice. Talk about a time saver. So I'm trying to think what else I wanted to say about that. The last thing to really dive into it, I know there's people out there, David's probably one of them who's smart enough to go code these on his own. I am not one of those. So I actually sought out some additional help. Zapier has a huge collection of experts. I can tell you who we used. I used a group called Luhu out of the UK. I don't know what Luhu stands for. The guy that runs it's named Andrew, super responsive. Anytime I sort of need something, I just email him, and it's relatively, I've hired coders my whole life. It's relatively inexpensive to get stuff done. And, you're not talking thousands of dollars to get this set up. It's, but it could be $1,000. I don't know. So Luhu is who we use, and he just knows Zapier inside and out, and he's great.
Awesome, Jim. This is amazing. This is very inspiring, and congratulations for making that happen. It's I'm just so amazed to see what you're able to do with a little bit of out of the box Zapier and then a little bit of custom magic. And just to reiterate some of what you said to make it clear for folks, with Zapier, there's a lot you can do yourself. If that coding part scared you at the end, and it shouldn't, I'll talk about that in a second, but there's a lot you can do yourself without writing code. So someone's asking about that. Code does not need to be written to use Zapier. There's a lot of point and click integrations where you can take the guest name and email and put that into Constant Contact or your email marketing software. We have a direct MailChimp integration, but if you're using something other than MailChimp, for example, you can just take that name and put it into that system, put it into Salesforce, put it into Typeform, and that's all done with simple point and click. And put it into a Google spreadsheet, into a Google Calendar that your cleaner then has. And it's been really fun to see some of the integrations through Zapier that our customers have done. And then in addition to that, if you want to do some more complex stuff, Zapier does allow for some custom code that's outside of their direct point and click integration. So if you're doing a little bit more complex if-then statements or some like specific mapping where you want it to go, want it to be related to a specific property in QuickBooks Online, then you do need a little bit of code to put into the Zap. And Jim, as you just said, it was fairly easy for you to find an expert, and you paid a few $100, and now it's set it and forget it, and it's done. So even if you don't do code, you can explain to an expert in the Zapier expert area. You can explain to them what your business logic, what your business rules are, what you want to happen, and they can then make that extra final step for you.
Yeah. And if you're not, so the only time you'll really have to get into a coding situation is if you need to translate the data in some way. If you're really taking that data, putting it into another system, it's a no code kind of system. It's point and click. It's super, super easy. And believe me, I've like scratched my head trying to, because I subscribe to Zapier now, and I'm like, I got to find more ways to use this. But with all the other rich integrations, it's like I've almost automated every other business process I can think of just with the Hostfully business partners. So I could see if people didn't really buy into the templates and triggers, you could do a bunch here with that. But there's so much automation you can do in your platform already. And I think that was where it started on Facebook, because I threw it out. I'm like, how else are people using this? And then there weren't a lot of other examples. I'm like, well, let's do a webinar and we'll see what else people are using it for. Because I'm sure I haven't thought of something. Here's just an example on there, common one. Send an email, drop it into a spreadsheet. You could have it text you. You could have it make calendar appointments. And again, we use, and maybe we should talk about that a little bit. We use a bunch of other integration partners. So anytime I'm trying to solve something for our business, the first thing I do is say, let's go out to the integration zone. And that's where I start. And I sort of say, who's Hostfully playing with? And then I try to vet those solutions based on, cost, business need, and everything. So I noticed they have their guidebooks right at the top. I guess I would too if it was my company. So Guidebooks, right out of the, that was one of the first things that we did. As we started going down the payment processor side, so when you're doing VRBO or direct bookings, you've got to run the credit card yourself. We've used a couple of these. Right now, we're using vacation rent payments. Been really happy with that integration. Solid. Not quite as rich in functionality as something like a Stripe, but I've had other business reasons why I've sort of landed there. Pricing tools, there's a bunch of great pricing tools out there on the market right now. We're using Price Labs. I started with them. I've liked sort of the set it and forget it kind of mentality there. I'll go in and tweak it on various properties for various things. They've recently sort of revamped the UI. I think they're focusing on some of the right things, and it seems to be getting more solid. I haven't used the other two that's listed here, but I hear great things as well, or other three. I guess I haven't even looked at DPGO. That must be newer.
Yes, we just launched it a few weeks ago.
Okay, yeah, because I had sort of played with all of these, and various reasons going to why you choose certain ones, and you guys have to love all your children, but at the end of the day, we sort of pick one and go with it. I'm sort of testing a couple different scheduling, clean over, turning management solutions right now. We've historically used VR Scheduler, looking some at Breezeway. And again, every time that we've played with an integration, I have not had problems with making, when a reservation happens, I need it to show up in the other systems. I can't babysit that, because if I have to babysit it, I might as well do it manually. I've never had a problem with that part of it happening. They do have, Hostfully does have a QuickBooks out of the box integration. Look at it, make sure you're using it, or the way this is constructed is the way you're going to do your accounting. For us, it wasn't quite the way we did it, so the Zapier was the solution we took there.
And I'll just chime in on that. With our integration, we're creating sales receipts, and it looks like you were making invoices. So that is a difference, and it's great. I love it that we have an out of the box integration that people use and works for some people, and that you were able to figure out another way to make it work for your use case.
Yep. I may have set up my accounting differently had I really dove into that, but after I paid an accountant a bunch of money to set up my GL and do all that, I wasn't going to unroll it just for that, because
Definitely.
Zapier got me where I needed to be. We also use Safely. Again, it's sort of been rock solid. They get the information, are happy to charge us, and that's worked out wonderfully.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? So you've kind of figured out the average booking, average length of a booking, and you put in an extra fee for every Safely booking. For every booking you have, and that goes to Safely. And then if there's any issue, any accident, any damage, they cover it. And have you submitted any claims, and how's that been?
Yeah, so Safely charges us a flat fee plus a per night fee to insure for all sorts of liability and damage, and it's a wonderful thing. The reason we went with a system like this, where we're insuring it from a third party, is that when I have an issue, I just submit the claim with Safely and I get paid. I don't have to harangue the guest, which in turn would damage my ratings. I don't have to arm wrestle with Airbnb about whose fault it is or whatnot. I just need to take pictures, document it, log into their portal, upload the invoices, upload the photos, and to this point, they've never denied us a claim. Now, I'm prudent with my claims, and I'm not doing insurance fraud. I'm out there claiming things that the guests have accidentally ruined. That happens. It's primarily sheets, towels. You get some carpets now and then. Knock on wood, we haven't had a window get blown out or anybody start a fire, but it does protect me on that side, not only from a liability standpoint, but from a property damage. And I'm taking care of a lot of other people's assets here. So all of our owners also have to have insurance on the property. I need something to protect the company and my assets.
So let's talk about that comment right there, because there's a question too about having normal homeowners insurance as secondary coverage for any issues that may happen when there is no reservation. So really that's the homeowner's responsibility for them to have insurance as well. And you're covering kind of each reservation through safety.
Insurance that is protecting against damage by the guests. This is not a general liability policy on that. Now I would, unsolicited business advice, I would look at your umbrella policies. If you're starting to take care of other people's assets, it only takes one really bad thing to happen to, ruin your life. So make sure you're properly insured. And we've had some discussions on Facebook on it. I actually got our agent off the Facebook user group. And I'm not out here to promote insurance agents, but it's find somebody that knows the industry, knows how to insure it, and go forward with that.
Awesome, thank you.
Not using HelloSign, not using that. MailChimp, we are dumping data in there. I have not, and this should be part of our SEO strategy. I've not done as good a job getting that going, though we have a QR code in every property. People can scan it with their phone, drop in their email address, and we are creating a mail list. We've just had other projects in front of that to really get down to a newsletter system. But MailChimp, if you haven't used it before, it's a great email marketing system. And let me see, from a smart home system, and it looks like since I first chose, there's a bunch more on here. We use Lynx or Get Lynx, used to be Virtual Key. Again, works seamlessly. That passes the reservation along with the phone numbers up to this. Lynx passes back to us a code. I guess let me just jump into a reservation here.
And Jim, which locks are you using with the Lynx integration?
We use all Schlage Z-Wave locks with Samsung smart hubs in every home. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, and the Lynx guys or gals or whomever you talk to can sort of walk you through that. But you need a hub in the home that's talking to the lock in some way. So our solution has been the Samsung's hubs, which Samsung now does a Wi-Fi router along with a hub integrated into one thing. So every property we bring up, we put that in to run the network.
Nice. So in a way, Lynx, and there's others like Operto that are like this, where they're kind of like the Zapier of smart locks, in that they are that middle layer of software. So if you might bring on board a home and that homeowner already has one lock in place, and Jim, it sounds like maybe you are able to change them for every home, but I know of some cases where our customers will have one home with one set of locks and another home with another set of locks that are already in place. If there aren't smart locks, maybe they have their go-to, but if there's smart locks already in place, they got to stick with those. And Lynx can kind of talk with a whole bunch of different locks and be that sort of middle layer. Yeah.
We just, we try to standardize on that, and I try to push all of our clients to that. And I guess for the most part, we've been successful in pushing them to it. In some cases, I've just bought the lock and installed it for them. Again, scalability, you try to take out as many variables in a process as possible. And if I know everybody has a Samsung, everyone has this lock, it's faster for me to troubleshoot. But definitely, if you look at everything that they work with, and most of those platforms, and they can tie into noise systems now, they can tie into the thermostats, they can tie, there's a bunch more that you can automate from a smart home standpoint. we've sort of stuck with the locks to this point. I was just going to show you. So,
Stay details.
Yeah, this is too new. So it'll pass the PIN code. Oh, that was the one I did.
All right,
Oh,
live demos.
This is the only property. This has a 4-inch thick door on it, and we tried to modify a lock to fit. So it's the only property that still uses a box. I was like, why does that not have a PIN
Nice.
code? Let me just pull up this one. So like this one, Lynx will pass this. This is the PIN code. That's a variable now that I drop into the email. I drop into the text message that I send them. I mean, you want to make sure that no matter what time of day they get there, that'll work. Now in Lynx, you can also set it up to say, this code is going to work from this time to this time. My word of advice here is expand that a little bit beyond your check-in and check-out dates. We used to have it like turn off the second that, they were our checkout time, and all of a sudden they turn around and try to open the door and it doesn't work anymore, or, just give it a little bit of flexibility. And I think from an integration standpoint, that, and then obviously Zapier. So we use that. And I think
that's it.
Yeah, we're bumping up on time. I was worried we'd have too much time.
I wasn't worried about that one bit with everything you've got going on. Wow, Jim, that was awesome. Thanks so much. I know we are running up on time. I do see a few questions. If there's any other questions, we can pass them on to Jim offline, or I encourage you to thank Jim in the Facebook Hostfully Users Group, and you can ask the questions there as well. One high level question that I saw come in was about your general flow. You don't need to get into the details because you have so many triggers there, but what do you think is the best kind of communication cadence for your guests? Like right when a reservation is made, send an email. I think you said like 4 days before they arrive. Do you send an email a day after they've arrived to check in, or a day before they leave, or something like that? What's that general flow?
Yeah. So I won't take all the credit for that because and I guess I can plug other things. But as I was setting up this company, one of the things I did was read a book by Daniel that optimized Airbnb or optimized B&B or whatever. And he was the one that got me thinking about it, and I think talks quite a bit about it in his book. So there's a message that goes out immediately when they book. Thanks for the booking, You're going to get your check-in information 3 days before you arrive, whatever. Then we don't do any other communication. 4 days before they arrive, we send them a message that basically says, here's your guidebook. We're looking forward to hosting you. Here's your PIN code. Here's our phone number if you need to get a hold of us. Good. They should check in. The next morning before they wake up, they get a message that says, hey, hope you're experiencing a 5-star stay. By the way, we roast our own coffee. You'll find that in the kitchen, let us know if there's any problems or whatever. Then the day before they check out, they get a message saying, just a reminder, checkout time tomorrow is this time. And these are the things we would like you to do before you check out. Right after they check out, I think it goes out the next day, they get a message, thanks for leaving the property in such great shape. I'll leave you a 5-star review as soon as we're allowed. Appreciate it if you do the same. And that's sort of the end of the message flow. Now we're working on some ancillary services that will probably kick off next high season around other things that we can add on in the valley, like experiences, paddleboard rentals or whatever, or we've thought about doing some stocking around groceries. So we may layer in some other things there to upsell and cross-sell services. But right now it's those 5 messages.
Awesome. That's great. And of course, if it was a bad experience, you can go into Hostfully and cancel that final email that says, I'm going to write you a 5-star review.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, but we do it.
All right, we are a little over time. I'll do one final question. I'll try to combine a couple that I've seen come in, which is with QuickBooks and the owner side about how do you have any automation for invoicing the owners, what their percentages each month, and related to that, essentially, how do you pay your homeowners? Is it via invoicing QuickBooks? Are you automating that? Just how does that final step of what you showed happen?
Yeah, so we saw the rental side of the business where we're collecting invoices and collecting the money and everything. We have an end of month process. Well, the other thing that happens in our world is I've got hot tub service people, I've got lawn care maintenance people, I've got electricians, I got plumbers. There's a lot of, and I've got services that we'll provide to owners, like if we have to replace a propane tank or whatever. There's things that happen throughout the month in operations. What we do in operations then is invoiced rentals for that amount of money, and we transfer money from rentals to operations to cover that. Now, when we get to the end of the month, we've got a statement process that we go through that basically says we're going to clear out and get to zero. So you start with your revenue, you've got all your invoices, and basically I'm just sort of leveraging a modified P&L statement, and I'm running the classes of properties as a P&L. Hopefully that makes sense. But so I'll say this specific property, give me the P&L for this month. So I'm going to see all the revenue. I'm going to see, maybe I've got some VRBO charge fees. I've got some credit card fees. I was taking care of their lawn. There's a bunch of, I've got my management fee. I've got these fees that happen. Then at the bottom, I'll see the amount of money that we owe that property owner. I create a bill for that in rentals and basically says, I owe this vendor, and the vendors are the property owners here. I owe this vendor this amount of money. And I actually use QuickBooks ACH tool through Melio. I just click on it, pay, boom, I've got their ACH details, and the money just transfers from my account to their account. And I'm usually paying out owners a couple days before the end of the month because I know reservations aren't changing, and I've got everything automated to this point where it takes me about a day, or I've turned over the process, but it takes about a day just to go through every property, make sure that it all matches up, and then we just pay it out and we start the month over. Hopefully that answers. There's more devil in the details on that, and you have to make sure it's right. But every month I have to get down to that P&L saying zero. I've paid out the net amount and there's nothing left on the book. And then we start over.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I have really exciting news that this webinar is recorded. So people who want to hear that answer again can hear that answer a second or a third time. But Jim, this was wonderful. Thank you for being our first speaker for our Spotlight series. Thanks for the idea of the Spotlight series. I learned a lot on this. I'm so impressed with what you've done. Thank you for being a power user and for sharing all your insights with the community. So thank you. And thanks everyone for attending. You will be able to see a recording of this to review what Jim had talked about. And as I mentioned before, feel free to ask him questions on the Facebook user group if it wasn't answered yet, or if you have new ones. And we'll see you on our next webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.